Hi, it's me, Dion here. I just thought I'd make a video today because today's my day off, and I today and tomorrow I have the most free time to do stuff like this. Usually, when I make videos, I make them at work before work because I get to work pretty early, so I have extra time, so I make a video. But the best time for me to make them really is on my days off, so I'm making a video today. Um, the last video that I made, I was talking about the stigma associated with um, heroin/opiate addiction, and also the stigma attached to the treatments for heroin or opiate addiction. Um, and I'm not talking about the treatment of 12 steps, NAAA. I'm talking about medication assisted treatment. Um, the treatment that I'm most familiar with, because I'm on it myself and have been on it for almost 13 years, is methadone. I know a lot about methadone. I've watched documentaries on methadone. I've researched it. When I got on it, I really wanted to learn everything I could about this medication and what it was all about and how it could benefit me, help me, and help me get to the next phase I want to get in my life. And what I learned about methadone initially was how it immediately stopped withdrawal once you get on the right dose. If you're on a really low dose, if you go to a clinic, they start you at a low dose, like around 30, sometimes 40 milligrams, but usually right around 30. And you can go up, I believe it's 10 milligrams a day. And when you hit 80, they hold you there for I think it's 4 days. And then after the 4 days, if you feel you still need to go up, you can still go up higher. Most clinics that I know, they go up to 120 to 130 milligrams. There's one clinic that we have out here in Las Vegas. I won't give their name, but they go up much higher than any other clinic that I've heard of in the Las Vegas area. And I know of people on almost 200 milligrams of not heroin, but methadone. Sorry, of methadone. I was sitting with this one woman one time. She didn't have anywhere to go, so I invited her to come over to my house for a little while, so she could. It was kind of cold out. Cold out for being Las Vegas. It wasn't really cold, but she was living on the streets and she didn't have anywhere to go, so I invited her to come over, and she was on such a high dosage of methadone that she spent the entire time that she was at my house sleeping in a chair. It was really ridiculous. And I even told her, I had a discussion with her. I said, she was on 180 milligrams. I said, why would you stay on such a high milligram if you know this is what it does to you? She said, because I used to be on methadone several years ago, and this was the dose I was at. So when I went back to the clinic, they automatically put me on the same dose. I said, that doesn't make sense. I said, why would they put you on the same dose if it's too much for you? You should be on the amount of methadone that takes away your withdrawal symptoms and takes away any cravings that you have to use heroin or other opiates in general. That's all you wanted to do. You're not trying. I wasn't trying to get fucked up or be totally in a state of oblivion 24 hours a day. And I think people like that particular clinic because you can go up to such a high degree of methadone that you're in oblivion all day. That was never my objective, to be fucked up on this stuff. I mean, this stuff is a full effective opiate, so I was told that if you got on a high enough dose, you can experience euphoria. I don't know if you experience euphoria. I think more of you experience is tiredness and really sleepiness and grogginess and just falling asleep all day long. I don't think there's so much of a euphoria experience with it. I think it's just where you're totally knocked out and tired all day. And if you're experiencing that and you're super tired all day, you have to ask yourself, how functional am I? Am I really being? If I'm so tired all day that I can't stay awake to even do normal activities, how useful is this methadone really being to me? Because the point of the methadone is to make you more functionable and give you a more stable life than you had when you were using. If you're now in a state where you're so exhausted and tired that you can't even stay awake all day, I mean, what if you were to try to get a job? What kind of situation would that be for you if you can't even stay awake all day for a job? Now, this particular person wasn't interested in getting a job. She was far from a point in her life where she was trying to get a job. But for the most part, for the general person that goes to a methadone clinic, an average person that goes there, I'm expecting that they want to be a normal functioning everyday person, and that would include being employable. And if you're on such a high dose that you can't even stay awake, I would think that would make you want to talk to the nurses or doctor or whoever you need to speak to at your particular clinic about the fact that you're on such a high dose that you can't stay awake throughout the day. You're falling asleep even during random normal activities like sitting down, eating, or whatever. I just think it's ridiculous when people are on such a high dose that they can't even do normal activities like staying awake at somebody's house for a couple hours. I mean, that's way too high of a dose. I mean, and you should be the one in control of your dose. It's in your body. You're the one who has to live with the effects of the methadone. So if it's such a high dose that you can't function and you're nodding out, and when I say nodding out, I don't necessarily mean nodding out because you're high. I mean nodding out because you're just so tired, you're falling asleep, you're nodding, you're falling asleep. That's what I mean. Because a lot of people associate nodding out with being high on heroin. And yes, it can be associated with getting high on heroin. But when I'm speaking of nodding out, I'm simply referring to being so exhausted that you are constantly falling into a state of complete sedation for periods of time. And that's not a practical way for someone to conduct their life when they're in a state of sedation the entire day. I mean, I would think the only time they could come out of that state of sedation would be near the end of the night or the next morning when the methadone is starting to wear down in their system a bit and they're ready for the next dose. But those are the reasons, I think, in my opinion, why methadone gets a bad rap and why methadone has the stigma associated with it, because of people like that who they see are all sedated and nodding out on the medication, and it makes it look like that's what everyone on methadone is like. And that's just not the case. Yes, you have some people that if they're on a clinic that allow them to go up to an extremely high dosage, will go up to crazy levels and be in a state of sedation for the better part of their day. But that is not the general effect of most people who are on methadone. most people are on methadone are on enough methadone to keep withdrawals at bay and keep uh, all cravings under control and cease to exist for you for the most part. Um, that is the main reason for methadone use, to control cravings and withdrawal symptoms. If those two things are under control and you feel good and you feel like you feel good, and I don't mean high good, but I mean you feel good like you can get up and do things and you can lead a normal, regular life, then you're probably on the right dose. But if you get to a point where you're feeling more sedated during the day and you're taking long naps several times a day, and you can't even do normal activities like sitting down to eat a meal because you're falling asleep and you're at your meal time, then you should really reconsider the dose you're on, and speaking to somebody at your clinic about going down and explain to them that you're not being able to do just simple activities because you're so tired and you're nodding out even doing the simplest of activities. Because that's not a really practical way to be on methadone, to be on such a high dose that you can't function on an everyday basis. Because that's defeating the purpose of the methadone. The purpose of the methadone is to make you more functionable, to make you where you can have a normal life and to conduct your life in a way where you can do normal everyday things. And one of those things is holding a job for most people. Most people want to be employable. That's part of the reason why they want to get on methadone, because they want to get to a point where they can hold a job, support themselves, be self-sufficient. I mean, that was my motivation. And if I was on such a high dose that it would prevent me from being employable, I would most definitely talk to whoever I need to talk to about going down in my dosage so that I could be at a state where I was functionable and employable. And that's why, in my opinion, one of the main reasons why methadone gets a bad reputation, because of people that go extremely high on their doses at the clinics that allow them to go that high and are incoherent most of the day. And when the general public sees these people like this and they know they're on methadone, they get the idea that this is what methadone is about. Being knocked out all day and being incoherent and not being able to be functionable. So obviously if they're like this, they know they're not employable. It doesn't take rocket science to figure out that if this is the condition and state they're in, they wouldn't be able to hold a job. And that's when people start thinking about methadone as a negative thing, as something that people are using to be in a state of sedation where they can feel like in some way, shape, or form that's a high to them. Some people enjoy that being totally sedated, and enjoy it to the point where even though it's not the same euphoria as heroin was, they like the state of being sedated. That's almost like a high to them in itself, being in that state where you're so sedated, you're so out there that you are, incoherent and whatnot. But that's not the norm of most methadone users. Most methadone users are on a very steady, stable state of methadone where they can function throughout their day, hold a job and do the normal things that the average everyday person can do. That's why most people get on methadone. But it's just those few people that like to overdo it and be in that gaga land kind of state that give the drug of methadone such a bad reputation, and then everyone in society looks at this medication as a negative thing, and they don't realize that this is truly a very helpful medication and can do wonders for people that are in a chronic state of addiction and relapse and whatnot, and they can't get their life together. And then you put this medication in their life, and suddenly they're functionable, and they can they can live in society like everyone else, hold jobs, be independent, you know, be self sufficient. It can be a miracle in someone's life when they use it properly and in the right manner. But yes, there are those that that will abuse it, but I don't think that that should be looked at as the entire medication is a negative thing because of the few that use it in the wrong manner. You know, there's always going to be people that are going to abuse things and take things to the extreme in every area of life, not just methadone. There are people that do things to the extreme in every area of life that we can look at. You know, I mean, jogging. You know, there are people that are obsessed with working out, jogging, running, you know, weightlifting. There are people that take it to the extreme. But nobody looks at exercise as a negative thing. Exercise is generally looked at as a very positive thing, something you can do to get in shape, better your health, and it's never referred to as a, oh well, I don't want to start that exercise thing because I know people that are, you know, going crazy on it and they just take it to the extreme. They don't look at it that way. They look at it as, you know, it's a good thing for your health, for controlling your weight, getting in shape, being in good physical fitness. Um, they don't look at it as for the few people to take it to the extreme, like anorexics, they're exercising to the max. We don't look at exercising in that way. Well, I don't want to be like so and so. She's anorexic. She works out too much and she's down to 80 pounds. You know, we don't do that with other areas of life. You know, we don't look at it in a negative way. We always see the positive in it. Well, why can't they do that with methadone? Why can't they say, yes, there are some people that abuse it and take it to the extreme and don't use it properly, but for the most part, it's a good medication, helps hundreds of thousands of people every day in this country and many other countries in the world, and it has been known to totally transform the life of an addict into the normal everyday person yet again. It's a miracle for some people. I consider it a miracle. Okay, it was a miracle for me because I truly felt there was no hope for me. I truly felt like my life was going down the shitter and there was nothing I could do about it. I didn't know how I could ever get off this drug and be functionable because when I attempted it, I was in such a state of misery and it was awful. I felt so awful that I thought, if this is what sobriety is about, I can't do it. I cannot do this. I cannot live like this. I cannot be in such a state of depression and anguish every second of my existence and almost wanting to be dead because I felt so bad. If I would have continued to go down that path of trying to be sober even though I was miserable, it would be inevitable that I would try to commit suicide at some point in time. I know myself, and I know I could only take so much of being miserable like that. And when I had finally had enough of it, I just went back to using because it just made more sense than being as miserable as I was trying to stay clean. But we've got to get past this idea that methadone is this terrible drug that people are abusing and it's killing people, and there's always those extreme cases where people abuse and people have even died from overdoses of methadone. I'm not denying that with those facts. Yes, those are very true facts that take place in this country every day. People die from methadone every day. People abuse the methadone every day. There are those groups of people that do that. But when you look at the big picture and the entire population of people that are using methadone, most of them are using it properly and in a fashion where it's helping their life and creating stability and independence and giving them back a quality of life that they did not have prior to methadone entering their life. For the most part, methadone is a very positive thing and is a very helpful thing and can be a life-changing, life-saving thing for people that are crippled with addiction and can't find a way out any other way. 12 steps, NAAA can work in some people's lives and be miraculous for some people. I don't deny that. But, sorry, I need a drink. But I would have to say that most people are not able to stay clean off of opiates or heroin long term, doing it the old-fashioned way through the 12-step program. Opiates are a very different type of medication, or drug, should I say. Opiates slash heroin are very different types of drugs than most other drugs like cocaine, methamphetamines, marijuana. It's different in the sense that it doesn't just take over your life mentally and psychologically. It takes over your life physically. If you don't have that drug, you're going to be sick as a dog. You're not going to be able to function. If you have a job, that job is going to be nil to none before long, because drug dealers are notorious for not being dependable. You can't look at your time and say, well, it's 8 o'clock, the drug dealer will be here by 8:30, no problem. If they tell you on the phone they're going to be there in 30 minutes, it could be 4 hours. So you can't always set the time clock for when they're going to be there, because they come when they feel like coming. They come when they're able to come, when they're on the other side of the town, when it's convenient for them. Yeah, they want the money, but they've got so many people calling them. There's a shortage of heroin addicts, okay? So it's not like they have to rush over to you to get your money because you're the only one buying from them. Dope dealers have so many people calling them, wanting drugs from them. They go to the first person that's closest to them and work their way out, I would think. But if you live far away from them, you can count on it taking a while before they get to you. I remember my aunt lived right down the street from where the dope dealer lived. And that's when I realized the dope dealer made his rounds according to location-wise. She would always get her drugs first thing in the morning when she first called him. She'd wait maybe 10 or 15 minutes, if that. And he'd be at her door knocking, I'm here, and she would get her drugs. I, on the other hand, lived across town and lived much further away. It would take me a much longer period of time to get the drugs, unless I called them a little bit later in the day, because let's say I didn't have money at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, and I called them at 12 or 12:30 or 1. Maybe they were already on my side of town, and by the time when I called them, they got to me relatively quickly because they happened to be in that area, and it was easy for them to get to me. But my point in bringing this up is that you cannot depend on a drug dealer to be there at a certain given time so that you can hold a job and function like a normal person. Because if you have to be at your job by, let's say, 10 o'clock in the morning, and you call the dope dealer at between 7 and 8, you have to hope and pray that dope dealer is there on time for you to get your drugs, do your drugs, and be at work by 10. There's going to be times, I can guarantee it, I would bet my life on it. If that was what your schedule looked like, there are going to be times that drug dealer is not going to be there. before you need to go to work. You're gonna either have to go to work sick, or you're gonna be calling in, being late, or not showing up at all. And you can only not show up and show up late for so long at a job before that job is gonna dry up on you, and you're not gonna have a job anymore. That's why I could never hold a job when I was using, because I could not function if I didn't have my drugs. And there were many and many times I waited for hours for them to come. Hours. There were times I called at 10 in the morning and they didn't get there till 6 or 7 at night. Okay, I waited all day for them. I've had experiences like that. Okay, it wasn't like that every day, but I had experiences like that. Now, what do you do if you have a job in a situation like that? I was the type of person that when I was dope sick, I could not do anything. I could not function. I could not go to a job like that. I would not be able to function at a job feeling like utter shit. I could not do it. And that's why I didn't even bother to attempt looking for jobs when I was in my addiction, because I knew it was a pointless idea to try to get a job when my life was so unpredictable. Okay? I could never predict when the dope dealer was going to show up at my house. What he says on the phone is one thing, but, in reality, it's a completely different story. And he says it's going to be in 30 minutes. It could be 3 hours. You never know. Because his time frame is very different than reality time frame. It could be 30 minutes in his time frame. It could be 4 hours my time frame. I mean, it just depends. And that's just the unpredictability of a drug addiction. You cannot predict it. You cannot hold your life to a time clock when you're on drugs, because it's an unpredictable situation. You can never predict anything when you're on drugs, especially drug dealers. They are very unreliable, unpredictable sources. And they'll probably show up eventually, but they'll show up in their time, when they're good and ready to, when it's convenient for them. They don't care how sick you are. They don't care if you've got plans to be somewhere at a certain time. They're going to show up when they are good and ready to show up. And that's just the way it is. And it's frustrating. It's annoying. And, as a drug addict, it's very frustrating to be dope sick, need your drugs, and have to wait for sometimes hours upon hours for this dope dealer to show up with your dose of drugs. It sucks. That's why when I got on methadone, it was such a relief to know that every day at the same time I could get my methadone, and I didn't have to depend on a drug dealer to bring me something to make me well. I take my methadone roughly at the same time every day, except on my days off. I take it a bit later in the day because I'm not getting up as early and I don't have to be out the door so early. But, I just think we need to really put things into perspective when we're looking at certain things, especially like methadone, and instead of looking at the far and few in between that are abusing the drug and not taking it in the proper manner that they should be, and they're not using it to the benefit that they're supposed to be using it to really benefit their lives and make them more functional. They're using it to be completely incoherent and knocked out all day. Yes, there are those people that do that, but that doesn't mean everyone on methadone does that. In fact, not most people on methadone don't do that. Most people want to be functional. If I was on such a high dose that I was incoherent, there's no doubt I would definitely talk to somebody about going down so that I was on a more reasonable dose that I could function like a normal person. The main thing I wanted to do when I got off drugs, when I got on methadone, was be employable. Because that was something I could not do on drugs. And I wanted to make my own money and to be dependable, and depend on myself, and be independent and be able to be self-sufficient. I wanted that for myself. I longed for that. I had a yearning and a real, you know, need for that in my life. And there's no way I would have been happy staying at a super high dose if I was at if I was at a clinic that would provide me with a dose that high, that is, and be okay with that. In my clinic, if you want to go anything higher than, I think it's 120, you have to have certain testing done so they see the levels of methadone in your system, so they know for sure if you really do need to go higher. They will not just put you anything higher than 120 unless they do a blood test to see exactly what the levels of methadone are in your system. They do that to protect you from overdose and to protect themselves from people abusing the medication. But I really think we need to reanalyze and reevaluate the way we're looking at this medication as a society, and rethink the fact that we're telling people don't get on this medication, it's bad news, it's just like legal heroin, it's this, it's that, because we're telling people that may be in the trenches of serious opiate addiction or heroin addiction and have tried everything else, and they are at their last wits with what to do with their life, how to get out of this situation. And methadone may be exactly what is needed in that particular situation for that person. And that person may not want to go on methadone just because of the stigma that they've heard and the negative things they've heard about methadone. And because they've heard these negative things, are not even willing to explore the idea of trying it to see if it might actually be what they need in their life to put their life back into a functioning way again. I mean, so many people go along with the gossip of what they hear on the streets and what they've heard on different websites or YouTube, for example, that methadone is highly addictive. It's just like being on heroin. You're not really being clean. It's not really being in recovery. They hear all these negative things, and they're in the depths of their addiction. They need a way out, but they're not willing to try something that is a proven avenue for getting into real recovery and changing your life in a real positive way, and can do it on a long-term basis for years and maybe forever. They're not willing to go down that path just because of what they've heard and the stigma that's associated with this medication. I think that's sad, because they're cheating themselves out of the chance of having a life this could be beyond their wildest dreams if they only could see past the negative stigma associated and talk to people that are on methadone, that are doing well in methadone, that are doing extremely well and are prospering and fulfilling their goals and succeeding in life and really moving forward in their life in a way where they never thought they could before. If they could only talk to the people that are using methadone for its intended purpose, and talk to the people who are really doing outstanding things with their life because of methadone. Those are the people you need to talk to. You don't want to talk to the people that are using it in a negative way and are abusing it and not utilizing the medication for its intended purpose. But this medication, we have to get the word out. We've got to get the word out that the things that they see in a video, a clip of somebody nodded out or inebriated or incoherent, that is not what the normal thing is for people on methadone. Most people on methadone are not in that state. Most people are not incoherently going through their day like a moron, stuck on stupid still. Most people don't want to be in that state and will not get on a dose of methadone to ever get to be anything close to being in that type of state. It's some of these methadone clinics that allow you to go up higher and higher without really validating if it's necessary for you to be that high. I mean, the woman that I know, if they would have done the blood testing on her when she got to be at like 120, 130 milligrams, and would have seen that she was really on the right dose right then and there, instead of keep on letting her go higher and higher and higher and higher, even though it was not necessary for her to be that high. She would be functionable, and she would be not in a state of a stupor all day. But I just want to put the word out there that what you see when they show a clip of somebody in that inebriated state, bent over or fallen over a chair or completely nodded out somewhere, sitting on a park bench, looking like they're half-crocked, that is not the norm for people on methadone. I don't see people like that at my clinic ever. I've never seen anyone at my clinic in that state. There's only one clinic I know of in Las Vegas that allows you to go up to such a high dosage without testing your blood to see the actual levels of methadone in your system before they allow you to go any higher. And the first clinic I went to, the highest you could go up to was 120, and if you wanted to go any higher than that, if you were still feeling withdrawals, cravings, and it is possible that you may need to go higher. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. There are people that need to go higher for whatever reason or other. But I know a woman that was on 150 milligrams, but she had to go and get testing done. And the testing that they do, where they test your blood to see the level of methadone in your system, the name of the test is called a peak and trough. Okay? They test your blood after your dose, and they test it several hours after your dose at the peak of when it would be the highest level in your system. And they want to see what it looks like in your system. They do all kinds of testing. I don't know exactly what they're looking for. I don't know exactly the details of it. I've never had it done. I've never needed to go that high to get to a steady state of stability on methadone. I've always been able to go up to the level before I needed to do that type of thing. But the woman that I knew, she had a lot of health problems, and there could have been some reason why she needed to go a bit higher than what the clinic normally went up to. But she had the testing done, and it showed that the methadone was depleting out of her system much quicker than the average person. Some people have a much higher metabolism when it comes to metabolizing methadone in your system. And when you have a situation like that, those are the people that need to go on a bit of a higher dose, because the methadone is metabolizing in their system at a faster rate than the average person. And when it's doing that, it's causing you to go into withdrawal much sooner than you should. And then that's when you need to go on a higher dose. And there are people that do need to go on a bit of a higher dose. I'm not denying that. But certainly not everyone. And the clinic that I'm referring to, they don't do the peak and trough. They just allow you to go up as high as you want. And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it's that clinic that's making all clinics look bad. Because people get the idea when they see people coming from a clinic like that, and they see them in that steady state of being inebriated and incoherent, that they get the idea that all methadone users are in that state of being. And they're all completely incoherent, and they're not in any better state than they were on when they were on heroin. And for those people, they're not. You know, the only difference is they don't have to wait for a drug dealer every day and spend the money on drugs. If they have Medicaid or insurance, it covers their drug, the methadone, and they can go every morning at the same time, get their dose of methadone, be done for the day, and go home and be nodded out all day if they want to, if that's what they choose. But that is not what most methadone clinics do. That's why most methadone clinics have a ceiling dose rate, and it's usually between 120 to 130. And after you hit that ceiling rate, if you feel you need to go higher, you have to have blood work done to test your blood to see if you actually are metabolizing methadone in your system at a faster rate than normal. And under those circumstances, you would be allowed to go higher at a level that was more effective for addressing the issue with you metabolizing the methadone quicker than normally. But that's not something that happens for every single person. And this clinic that I know of, they don't realize they're giving methadone a bad name, and they're making all methadone clinics look incompetent and make it look like it's just a legal place to go get your drugs. And it's really very sad and unfortunate that one clinic who behaves that way and conducts their business that way and allows their patients to get on such high doses makes everyone else who's doing good work and really following good ethical practices, makes them look just as incompetent as they are, because people who aren't on methadone and don't know anything about methadone don't realize that it's not all clinics that are doing that. They just associate methadone clinics when they know when one's doing bad, they associate all of them and consider all of them they must be doing the same thing. And that's just not the case. Most methadone clinics do not allow you to go up to those kind of crazy high doses unless you can prove there's a real need for it. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to put things into perspective, to explain to people that not all methadone clinics are allowing their patients to go up to these crazy levels where they're incoherent all day and in a state where they're not functionable. And I don't think the methadone clinic knows. I think this clinic that I'm speaking of, and I won't name them, but I think this clinic thinks they're doing the right thing. But if they could only see their patients throughout the day, and the fact that they're not functioning like normal people, and they're not being able to do normal activities because they're so knocked out on the methadone all day, they would understand that what they're doing, the practice they have of allowing the patient to go up basically as high as they want, is not a good practice. I applaud them for allowing the patient to be in control of their medication to a certain extent. That's a good thing. The patient should have some control over what methadone dose they're on, because they're the ones that have to be on the medication. It's in their body, and they should know when they feel the best on the methadone. That's true. But when you when you go to such crazy levels, 180, 200 milligrams and beyond, they should be asking themselves, is this really a necessity for all these patients to be on these super high doses? Or maybe we should do some testing and make sure that they're really on the right dose and we're not over medicating these people, because it's putting them in harm's way. They could have somebody hurt them, but when you're not in your right state of mind and you're incoherent and you're not living on the streets, anybody can harm you, violate you, do something to you in a negative way, because you're not in your right state of mind and you're not coherent enough to be alert to defend yourself and see what's going on around you. Especially if you're living on the streets, I would think you'd want to be in your right state of mind at all times to make sure you're not putting yourself in harm's way. But I just wanted to explain to people that not all methadone clinics have a practice of letting their patients go up to extremely high doses and letting them get to a point where they're basically incoherent all day. Most clinics, if a patient tells them they need to go to a certain level, they make the patient have blood work done so they can verify that it is a necessity for this patient to go up to a level over the standard level of what they generally consider the max level for the methadone dosage. And I think that's the appropriate way to go about it. I think when you allow a patient, when a patient is a drug addict and they abuse drugs, you can't always count on them to be honest about what level of methadone they're on is the appropriate level. We're talking about people that abuse heroin and are used to being in a state of incoherence most of the time, because that's how a lot of people like to be on heroin. They like to be nodded out. They find that a good feeling. I never liked to be nodded out on heroin. I wanted to be awake, to actually feel the way I felt on heroin, to experience the feeling, not be sleeping through it all. So that's why I don't find it an appealing feeling to be nodded out. Yeah, not even when I was on heroin did I like that feeling. I never found that to be a very appealing aspect of heroin. And I don't find that to be appealing to be on methadone in that state of mind. So before you go and judge methadone clinics and people on methadone so harshly and look at it as an evil drug that's killing society and not doing much good, keep in mind it's very far in between the people that are abusing methadone for negative reasons. There's a lot of clinics in Las Vegas area, and I only know of one that allows their patients to go up to these extreme levels. Let's say there's 10 clinics in Las Vegas. Okay, I don't know if there's that many, but I'm just throwing a round number out there. Out of the 10, 9 of them have a standard when it comes to the dosage, and if you want to go up any higher than 120 to 130 milligrams, you have to have a peak and trough done to verify it's a necessity for you to go higher than their standard level of methadone dosage. There's only one clinic that I know of that lets their patients have complete control of how high they go on their methadone dose. I think that's a very negative thing to do, to let the patient have that much control. I think they should have some control, but not to the point where they're at such a high level that they're not in any better state than they were on heroin. The only difference is they're saving money on heroin, and they don't have to wait for a drug dealer anymore. But they're still in this same state of mind that they were on heroin. They were incoherent. They're incoherent and uh, nodded out. But hold on one second, guys. So I just wanted to go over that with you guys, and explain to you guys exactly that not all methadone clinics are that way, and out of all the clinics in Las Vegas, only one happens to be that type of clinic that allows the patients to have complete and utter control over the dose of their methadone, regardless of the negative side effects that they're experiencing because of this control that they have. And I think the clinic means well, but I don't think they realize the harm it's really doing to the person and the harm it's doing to all methadone clinics in general, because it makes everyone look at methadone clinics in a negative light and not see it for the good it really does for the majority of people that are on methadone. Methadone can be a real saving grace for somebody who has not had any success in any other type of recovery so far. If you've tried everything else, and you've even tried things like buprenorphine or Suboxone, and even that is not found, you've not found that to be very helpful, and you're still having cravings, and you're still finding yourself using occasionally or even on a regular basis, then it's time to really think about something more. I don't want to use the word heavy duty, because I feel it's going to get a negative context if I say methadone is a heavy duty drug. Excuse me. It's not heavy duty, it's just it's a more potent medication for somebody that needs something more potent in their system to get them to a steady, stable state, where they can lead a normal, everyday life and function like a normal person. Buprenorphine is different because it doesn't fully what's the word? I'm trying to think of the word. It doesn't fully alert or I know it's not a full opiate, or it's an opiate, but it doesn't fully alert the opiate receptors. It doesn't fully awake the opiate receptors, something like that. Methadone fully alerts the opiate receptors. It fully hits the opiate receptors. I can't think of the word. Okay, forgive me. I'm so sorry. I can't think of the word. I've seen it a million times when I've seen them describe the differences between methadone and Suboxone. It doesn't fully awake the opiate receptors, and methadone does, and that's the difference. And if you're on Suboxone and it's not helping you as much, and you're still finding yourself using, and you're still having cravings, or even you're still having withdrawal symptoms, then you might want to try methadone, because if Suboxone doesn't work for you, methadone probably will. But I would say, before you get on methadone, I would suggest trying other methods first. Okay? See how it is doing it. 12 steps. See if it works. For most people, I don't think it will. But give it a try. What's the worst that'll happen? You'll go back to using? I mean, I hate to say it like that because, I mean, you if you went back to using, if you got clean for 2 or 3 months or however long, and you went back to using after having clean that time for that much clean time, it could be a death sentence because you could overdose yourself and die in the process. And I'm not denying that's a very, very true fact. But um, if you can, if you've had experiences with just constant relapsing doing the 12-step program, then I definitely would suggest medication. If you want to try Suboxone first to see if that works better for you, because that's a lighter opiate, a lighter treatment than methadone. Methadone is for people that are really hardcore heroin addicts and have tried everything else and nothing has helped them. That's when you want to try methadone. But methadone generally is effective if you're really ready to make the change. But if you still are in a state of living in chaos and you're not going to change anything else in your life, you're just going to get on methadone and continue living your life the same way you were when you were on heroin, it's not going to really be effective for changing your life the way that it's supposed to. The whole point of getting a methadone is so you can get rid of cravings, withdrawals, and start working on the issues that led you to your addiction in the first place. You know, dealing with trauma from childhood even into adulthood, whether it's childhood trauma, sexual trauma, whatever the trauma is, something led you to become an addict. Something was missing from the puzzle that caused you to reach out for a drug to make you feel more complete. And you need to find out what that was. Okay, once you can get on methadone and be in a receptive state to help, that's how I like to consider it. When you get on methadone, you're much more receptive to receiving the help that's needed to give you the help that was so necessary so that you can heal yourself from the inside out and possibly get off methadone someday. If you get to a point where you've treated your opiate addiction with methadone, you've looked at all the issues surrounding why you became an addict, what led you to your addiction, what kept you using as long as you did, all the things that happened to you in your life that were negative, you know, all the occurrences that were traumatic, and you've dealt with all of it. It's all in your past now, and it's no longer hindering you in your future. You know, if you want to get off methadone and you want to go do a slow detox off it so that you don't have to feel any withdrawal symptoms while getting off it, and there's very easy ways to get off methadone. You just detox it off it over time. And I've seen several people, many people, not just several, I've seen many people get off methadone over a gradual process. They go through no withdrawals, they get off, and they just continue on with their life, and they do so in a fashion without having withdrawal symptoms, not dealing with problems, getting off it. You don't have to be chained to methadone the rest of your life if you don't want to. Use it for what you want to use it for. Take away from it what you can. Utilize it for its benefits. And after you're done, get off it if you want to. I tried to get off it after 9 years, and I found myself wanting to use again. And I come from a family with a great deal of addiction. A great deal of addiction. My mother and her brother both died of overdoses within several years of each other. Addiction is so strong in my family, it's not even funny. So many people in my family that are addicted. So many. I don't think I'm one of those people that can ever stay clean without methadone. I've come to that conclusion. I've decided I'm going to stay on methadone probably for the rest of my life. And people can disagree with that if they want to, can criticize me for it if they want to. I know me. I know what's working for me. I don't want to risk losing my steady, stable life, my independence, my dependability, everything that I've worked so hard to achieve in these years that I've been clean. I don't want to risk losing any of it because of a relapse, because I have this attitude that I don't want to be on methadone. I don't need it. I want to do it on my own. I tried doing it on my own. It didn't work. I didn't use over it, but I came pretty close to it. And having had that situation happen to me after almost a decade clean, and I still wanted to go back and use, I realized that I'm one of the few, one of the lower percentile of people that may have to be on it forever. And you know what? It's a really small price to pay for having a quality of life that's worth living for again. So if I have to be on it forever, so be it. I'm not worried about it. I only have to go there twice a month right now. Eventually it'll only be once a month. And it's not harming me in any way. It's only bettering me. It's only making me able to live my life to the best of my ability. And I'm fine with that. But I'm going to end this video now. But before I end the video, as I mentioned in one of the last videos I made, or an earlier video I made, that I was going to make it a regular thing, that I was going to take my dose on camera, just to show you guys how easy it can be to have methadone in your life. And when you start getting the take-homes, how simple it is to have this in your life, and it's not a hassle at all. So I got my dose here. This is the dose. I've taken off the cap, taken off the seal, and the way I do it is I dilute the methadone with water first. So I fill the bottle up with water, and now and then I fill up the bottle with one more time with water, and that's because there's still methadone in the bottle after just filling it up one time. So I fill it up a second time to get the full dose. That's the end of it. This is day 14, because this was a holiday weekend, and I didn't have to go to the clinic today because of it being a holiday. Normally I would have gone to the clinic today, but it was Memorial Day weekend, so I didn't have to go to the clinic. And these are all my bottles. I number them all because we do have a thing called diversion, where they call you in and they check your box, check your bottles to make sure everything is being taken appropriately and as it's prescribed. And I always like to be prepared. I always like to be prepared for them to call me at any time. I'm actually looking forward to them calling me, because once I have 2 of these diversions, I'm eligible for monthlies, and I only have to go once a month. So I'm kind of eager for them to call me soon so that I can get the monthlies. But anyway, guys, I'm going to end this video now. I just wanted to talk about the stigma and why I feel the stigma is as bad as it is, and where it's coming from. And I hope everyone can start viewing methadone in a different light and stop looking at it as such a negative thing, and see it for the positive thing that it really can be in many people's lives. Because many people can't get off heroin on their own. Okay, many people can't. There's very far and few in between who can get off and stay off completely on their own. My mother had 14 years of sobriety. And even after 14 years, she relapsed. Okay? If when you're doing it the AA way or the NA way or the 12-step way, if you even stop going to meetings for a while, let's say you get sick and you don't go to meetings for 2 weeks, and after those 2 weeks of not going to meetings, you kind of got in the habit of not going to meetings for a couple weeks, so now you're not, and then you get out of the habit of doing it, so because of that, now you're not going to meetings as often, and that alone, for somebody who's using 12 steps as their main source of recovery, can shift a person into a state of mind where they're not as solid in their recovery and they're more prone to relapse. I don't want to have to depend on going to a meeting every single day in order for me to hold on to my recovery, because there are going to be times I can't go to a meeting. And right now, I work 5 days a week, and when I come home, I'm exhausted. I am totally off my rocker, exhausted. I don't have it in me to go to a meeting after work or on the days I have off work, hightail my ass to a meeting when I'd rather be at home relaxing on the 2 days I have to relax. But methadone can be a miracle if it's in the right, if it's used in the right way, in the right hands, and if you have the right clinic that isn't gonna overdose you. And when I say overdose you, I don't mean overdose. I mean overdose you. Okay. But I think I've said enough for one day. I hope I've given you some food for thought, and I hope that people start looking at methadone for the miracle it really can play in people's lives. For people that are so desperate for stability and functionability, it can provide that for you in the right context. When you go to the right clinic and you're in the right state of mind and you have a plan of action that you want to get your life together, it can work for you. It can bring a person that's so down in their addiction back up to reality and have a steady, stable life again. It's a miracle. It's truly a miracle for people like me. And I respect it for the miracle that it is, and I respect it for what it's done for me, and I don't take it for granted. I know that it's recovery is a precious thing, and you have to really respect recovery when you're in it, because it's so easily lost and so easily taken for granted, and when we take it for granted, that's when we lose it. But thanks for letting me share my life with you guys and give my feedback about some things that I needed to talk to you guys about. And I hope everyone has a great day, and till next time, guys, take it easy. Bye.